So let's get started. Hello, everyone. Hey, Juan. Welcome to LegalBlock Activity 2. Okay, we're going to talk about TPL. TPL stands for Transaction Permissionless Layer with our guest today, Demi from Zeppelin. TPL is the framework proposed for self-regulation. This is a topic all of us, like, and we're interested in. The idea here with these activities with LegalBlock is basically it's like a building a bridge. On the one side, we have developers building great things, and the other side we have lawyers trying to understand what is going on. Okay, so these activities under self-regulation is trying to build this bridge. So I don't know how many times you have the opportunity to have developers building and approach to them one-on-one to ask questions, and the same thing for the developers. So it's a feedback for all of us. Okay, the developers need your feedback as a lawyer as well. So these activities are trying to do this bridge, okay? So it's a cross collaboration here. Okay, so before we introduce Demian, let's see how many of you, and you can type on the chat, are familiar with the TPL or have been reading the material provided, just to see what level we have here. Okay, Anna, first time. Okay, great. Yeah, so trying to see what level we have here. Usually when we start this LegalBlock activities, we provide the material for you to review, to study on our channels. We open the discussion with some time, with like, let's say 2 weeks or 1 week, it depends. And people studying material, we discuss all the topics on the channel, and we open the questions. So we have some questions in advance here. So we're going to go with Demi. Demi will talk us about the TPL. Okay, totally new on this. Okay, so we have Demi, a lot of people that haven't heard about the TPL before. So, okay, perfect. So then we're gonna go with the questions that we already have from this previous discussion, okay? So here, what I say always, we start these activities, everything here is new, okay? The developers are building, are creating, the lawyers trying to understand. So let's reset our minds right now. Let's take a breath and let's get started. Okay, so Demian, welcome. Demian is CEO of Zeppelin. If I had to work about Zeppelin, I would say a lot of good things. That's very well known on the ecosystem as developers. But I'm going to leave Demi to explain what is Zeppelin and what Zeppelin has been doing for all of us.
Perfect. Thank you, Tete, and hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be talking to all of you, and especially talking about TPL, which is a project that I really like. Be about me. I'm founder and CEO of Zeppelin. What we do at Zeppelin, we build infrastructure to develop and manage smart contract applications. And we are also the leading security auditing firm in the space. So we basically do 3 main things. The first one, it's called Open Zeppelin. Open Zeppelin is an open source framework for secure smart contract development. It basically provides the standard libraries of smart contract code that many of the projects in the space are using. So everything there is open source. We have a community of over 4,000 developers that help us maintain this code good and secure, and we're there, good and secure, and do the sum, there, if you do the sum. I'm listening to myself. Maybe no, people can mute. You're muted, Tete.
Try now. I muted everyone. Try now.
Okay, yeah, now it's much better. Thank you. So I was talking about Open Zeppelin, this standard libraries of code, and from projects that are using it, they're over $4.5 billion worth of digital assets and economies built using our framework and our smart contracts. So that's one thing. On the other side, we do a lot of security audits, mostly of smart contract applications. We now audited over 80 projects in the space. Many big names: Brave, Golem, Definity, Cosmos, Blockchain Capital, Civic. Like over $600 million were raised with our audited smart contracts. And I don't know, doing the security audits and also by doing Open Zeppelin, we get a good understanding of what the main issues and challenges are. It's like kind of like having inside information to what's happening in the industry. And that kickstarted this, two projects. One is Zeppelin OS, which is our newest project. Is an operating system or a development platform for building and managing secure smart contract applications. What we see as the Windows or the Linux for blockchain technology and smart contract. And the fourth one is TPL, which we see many of our clients suffering from regulation, and talking to lawyers, talking to regulators. There's a lot of uncertainty around this. TPL is our effort to solve, or at least come up with a solution that can help, on one side, improve the safetiness and the well-being of the ecosystem, while also increasing not reducing the pace of innovation. In that sense, the problem that TPL comes to solve is today we have many countries, they suffer from cumbersome and outdated processes and administrative requirements and all this stuff. They stifle innovation and technological advances, and they also reduce the ability of participants to be able to participate in this new open economy. And this is super important to us because kind of like the reason we started Zeppelin, our main mission here, vision, is to enable economic freedom in the world and allow anyone, regardless of where they're located, to be able to work or invest or earn in any currency and whoever they want to be. So this is like one further step for us to achieving our vision. If you want, I can give a brief overview about TPL, and I guess then we can open up the conversation to questions that you have and other questions that people have.
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, we can say, Zeppelin. If I have a project, if I'm a team member, everyone goes with Zeppelin for audit, for contracts, and for the library as well. So let's say Zeppelin is a reference. I don't want to. I'm biased maybe because I know very much about the ecosystem in Zeppelin, but understanding that here we have a bunch of lawyers that maybe they don't even know what is Zeppelin. You get into a point that I would love to go deeper. What was your motivation? You briefly mentioned that we have these problems with the regulator, but as a developer, from the developer point of view, what was your motivation to say, okay, let's design this TPL from the developer side? The same concern that we all have?
Yes, I guess since I got into the space, I think it's over 6 years now, I've always been motivated about, again, enabling economic freedom and using technology to power these new economies and open economies where people could participate and grow. And I'm increasingly concerned about current regulatory regimes stifling innovation and impeding the vision for blockchain technology as an enabler for economic freedom to actually become a reality. So instead of like, waiting for something to happen, I think it's better for us take responsibility and use our reputation and our space in the industry to drive adoption of new technologies. And again, TPL is not a project, of Zeppelin. We started this because we believe it's important, but it's open source and it's, it's for the community and by the community. We envision this becoming a project with a life on its own and with further developments and a lot of ideas. So, we have this collaboratory approach where we want everyone to help us either with new ideas, new developments. Any help is welcome.
Correct. That's what we're trying to get here. The same. I mean, developers are saying we can bring, a solution, but as well as developers say we can bring a solution. Lawyers need to know that it's happening. It's not just waiting for the regulation to come out and say, listen, guys, you have to do this and this. The tools are there. They're building it. The only thing we have to do is put us together and understand what is going on. Good. Okay,
yeah,
so
in that sense, like technology moves much faster than society and regulatory framework. So I think it's our duty to make sure that everything we're doing protects people, but do it in a way that also enables innovation.
Correct, exactly, and that's the common ground here. Otherwise, we're going to have a gap between, regulation here and the other thing is we can start building things to self-regulate, to protect ourselves. Because this thing, is we need to protect ourselves. We don't need someone else or some regulator in any given jurisdiction to tell us, you have to do this. We know that we have to take care of ourselves. So these activities has just to bring this together so we can understand that.
The way I see it here is, there are a lot of great things happening with blockchain technology, lots of great projects, lots of interesting ideas getting funded, but there's also, scams and malicious behavior that we want to disincentivize. So for me, the objective for, having some sort of regulation is being able to provide participants, and current regulation doesn't fit our needs. So, again, we want to push forward some self-regulatory frameworks that can address all these issues, but also create the building blocks for these new economies to be able to integrate into traditional economies and foster.
Right. So let's see how it works. First of all, transaction permissionless layer. What is a layer in terms of to explain in terms of
the layer thing comes from how technology stacks are defined. So a stack of technology, you have different layers that they solve different problems or they act for different objectives. And here you have the blockchain layer, which provides the mechanism for consensus. Then you have the smart contract protocol layer that creates all these new type of assets and these new contractual relationships where people interact virtually and digitally. And then we're proposing here a new layer that in some sort regulates, I don't know if that's the right word, but regulates these transactions that happen using the underlying layers of blockchains and smart contracts transactions, that's creating some sort of set of rules, and also what we call digital jurisdictions, and I can tell you more about that, for people that trust each other to be able to trade in a safe way, a compliant way.
Okay, let's try some. Let me try to share the screen on the graphic you have on the white paper and the proposal, and you can explain us the components of that so we can understand. Okay, let me share this. Let me know if you can see the screen.
Yeah, perfect. Works for me.
Okay.
So let me start, let's go one step back, and then I will come up to explaining this this graph. So again, TPL, or transaction permission layer, tries to prevent malicious behavior in an economy. The way it does it is by introducing what we call, wait, 1 second, that's, are you guys hearing me?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
Check the chat because I don't have, okay.
Perfect. What I was saying is that the TPL protocol enables the creation of digital jurisdictions. And then I will go into that graph to explain what a digital jurisdiction is, and rules that are administered and regulated on chain by group that we call a root DAO. That's what you see there. These root DAOs, or actually changing the names to governance collectives, they're consortiums of crypto projects, or reputable stakeholders that have an interest in making sure that the transactions that happen within these digital borders of their different jurisdictions are safe and comply with the rules that they set.
So sorry, Demi. Each root DAO, or you changed the name now, or whatever, the circle ones are like the set of rules for each jurisdiction. If you will, okay.
Yes. Okay. And the creation of a digital jurisdiction, it's all done with open source code. So anyone is free to build its own digital jurisdiction and then convince the people to abide by their set of new rules. So going back to this graph and how TPL works, each jurisdiction, or this root DAO governance collectives, they elect or authorize trusted third parties, which are the certificate authorities that you see there, to certify the details of parties that participate within the jurisdiction, what we call like participants, the people that trade the assets, and the transaction with these participants to comply with the rules that this root DAO create. For example, a certificate authority, it's similar to how domain validation works in the traditional internet space, where you have GoDaddy or Namecheap being certificate authorities, and when you want to register a domain, you put some information. And there's also something called SSL certificates, which when you go into a bank, actually, if you look at the test screen here, you see the green lock right next to the HTTPS thing that says secure.
Here.
There, yes. The reason why that exists is because there's something called SSL certificates, where we, TPL protocol, have that certificate provided by, I think it's Namecheap, or no, I don't know which one, a service provider that certified that we are who we say we are. And then when Tete goes into our website, she sees the green lock, and she, since she trusts the issuer of our certificate that made our, that attested that we are TPL certificate, and also Google Chrome that she's using supports this kind of certificates, she can make sure that she's talking to us directly, and there's no one doing like a man in the middle or saying that he's TPL protocol, but he's not. So using the same analogy, which is pretty visual here, in TPL, you have these certificate authorities, but instead of validating that a domain is yours, they validate your identity and your investor accreditation status. So in the wording or lingo of like financial transactions, they will do KYC, they will do AML, they will check accreditation status if you're in the US or others. And there's a lot of bunch of tests or verifications that you can provide to someone. Also, making sure that this person holds the private key or the public key that they say they hold. There are a lot of identity verification mechanisms that the certificate authorities provide. And what they do is they provide a certificate to participants, being like a passport, attesting who they are and what characteristics they have. So for example, I'm from Argentina, and if I were to be identified by a certificate authority, the certificate authority will provide me a certificate stating that, I'm Demi, I'm from Argentina, I'm either an accredited investor or not, I'm not in the OFAC list, and all those kind of things.
Is that certificate authority off-chain? I mean, they validate as the usual KYC service provider?
Yes, all the validation is conducted off-chain, and what they do then, they sign something that's on-chain. So you have a registry on-chain with all the participants are validated, but all the validation and KYC is conducted off-chain by the certificate authority. So then, what's the use of these certificates? In the same way you go to Google Chrome and you go to a website and automatically you see the existence or the lack of the SSL certificates. When you go, when you want to transact with other people, let's go one step before. Let's say you are a project and you're issuing a token, right? And it's a security token. So, and you want to make sure that this token can only be used or traded by US investors or accredited investors. Or let's say you're a different project that it's asking you have to be outside the US. If you're a US investor, you cannot trade this token. So then all these rules for the features that you want participants to have, characteristics that you want participants to have when trading your asset, can be introduced at the smart contract level. So basically, when you develop your smart contracts, you can, every time a transaction will happen involving the tokens from that smart contract, the smart contract can check whether these participants will comply with these rules. So, and the way this smart contract checks is by looking at the smart contract before executing a transaction. They ask the participants to show their certificates, and the smart contract reads the certificates, understands what the characteristics and what the extensions of these certificates are for each participant, and then executes or rejects transactions accordingly. So let's say
automatically. I mean, the smart contracts do that automatically. Like
exactly, everything is done automatically. So to follow the example I was using before, let's say I only want US accredited investors to trade my assets, and when someone from China wants to trade and buy the tokens, the smart contract will require the Chinese guy to show that they have a passport or a certificate attesting that they're from the US. The Chinese will present his certificates. It will say that he's from China and not from the US. So the smart contract will reject any operation that this person can have. And this is kind of like a black or white thing, but you can do these rules where you have more complicated stuff up to allow people to trade up to certain volumes, or lots of things that can be done using the same protocol, the same layer of trust between participants.
Good. Okay. So before we go with the questions that we already have from people, I'm going to see if MJ, if you're in charge of the chat, if anyone is. I mean, I'm trying to see if we are all on the same page here. If we're understanding this.
Any questions out there? We don't have any in the chat.
Okay. See, yes, because I'm not checking the chat. I think there's one there, correct? Like a whitelist embedded in the smart contract. Is that?
Yes, that's a good way to put it. But I think the key important thing about TPL is that there's no single person that controls that whitelist. So, if you had one single organization being control of that whitelist, they could easily approve or reject people to join, and that could be pretty complicated in this decentralized open economy. So you need some sort of decentralized mechanism for admitting people into the whitelist and validating that they say who they say they are, and all these root DAOs with certificate authorities mechanism, which is borrows from how ICANN, the main validation system, works, provide kind of like a solution or alternative to a decentralized whitelist of investors that can be embedded into a smart contract code.
Okay, now we're gonna go with the questions that have been submitted before. I'm watching something interesting. I want to comment here. I'm seeing in the chat, not just lawyers, we have some developers here as well. So that's interesting because yeah, we have two more questions here. That's interesting, see just not, the lawyers, but developers trying to understand this.
And big devs, I see there.
Yeah. So we have here, okay, what is the mechanisms of choosing certificate authority? Ignacio asks, Sasha. What is the mechanism of choosing certificate authorities? We talk about these are the same KYC providers that are usually, outside of chain. So with this question, is that correct?
That's a good question, and the way we're proposing this protocol is each root DAO will elect what the mechanism for choosing their certificate authority is. There's no single truth or way to do that. There could be different ways to do it. There could be traditional ways where each root DAO will write some rules that each certificate authority must comply with, and then have certificate authorities apply and elect from them, and then also conducting some frequent auditing services to make sure that they're complying with all the standard processes that they provide. There could be also, going more like on-chain, blockchain ideas. There could also be TCRs, token curated registries, for each root DAO, where they could, approve or reject certificate authorities according to some on-chain governance mechanism that's on the TCR. There could be also, and I think this is super interesting, and this is something we're exploring, is what happens instead of having the root DAO or a future governing collective elect a number of certificate authorities. What happens if everyone in the network can be a certificate authority and can certify other people, but then you have some sort of reputation system where it's not the same thing to be validated by Vitalik than to be validated by a random guy. So you can have this kind of like root grass approach where people can validate each other, and some identity mechanism for that, and a reputation system. But that's like, again, answering your question, each root DAO or each governing collective will be able to choose those mechanisms.
Okay, let's imagine here something that we're talking and check, because I have a lot of questions here. Let's say with LegalBlock, a community of lawyers from everywhere in the world, because we have, a lot of jurisdiction joining and as members. Let's say we go with this model of a TCR where we certificate, we can explain that later, but the lawyers, okay? The lawyers have to submit the credentials and we vote, and we have that. Can we, as a community and representing, let's say, each jurisdiction, let's say Carlos, he is in Mexico, okay? Can he be a validator on the system?
Yeah, of course. I guess, the LegalBlock community can create its own digital jurisdiction and can become the first root DAO or governing collective, setting its own rules. And, you will choose Carlos in Mexico as the first certificate authority. Now, I think that the good thing about TPL is that it's open enough for each one to be able to create their own jurisdiction and also to elect certificate authorities in any mechanism that they want.
Okay, that's interesting. It was not part of the questions, but we are talking here, and that's what ideas, arise.
Yeah, and I guess like on the other side, since each root DAO can elect its own rules and its own ways to choose certificate authorities, if these rules don't make sense or if certificate authorities are badly selected, participants will not trust that root DAO and will not want to be part of their digital jurisdiction. So in the end, these root DAOs, they need to be able to manage and balance the legal requirements of the traditional world and also the requirements from the community of participants and projects. So both are content and they can all interact within their jurisdiction.
That's a common point we have when we talk about governance, and lawyers don't talk about governance, but we do talk about governance. And this thing about, okay, not all is on chain, not all is off chain. We can have a common ground, and we cannot avoid the experience of the lawyers, period. I mean, the knowledge is there for something, for years of experience. So we can put that together. Don't exclude, So good. Okay, let's move on with this. What do you see as an immediate business application of the TPL? Ignacio asks.
Two examples here. The first one is, what everyone is talking about, being a way to allow accredited investors in the US to trade tokens. So if you're issuing a token and you want to be compliant in the US, let's say with Reg D or Reg S, eventually you can put some transfer lockup restrictions in the token and have those people that buy the token only be able to interact with other accredited investors. So that's a thing, also, of course, for security tokens. And the other example I have is, what happens if you create a token or you create a non-fungible token, set of CryptoKitties or any other sort.
Explain the non-fungible token. The collector.
Okay. So no, tokens by definition they're fungible. So it's the same if you have one Bitcoin or another Bitcoin. Both are accepted the same and they value the same. But that's not true with, like, let's say, real world assets. If you have a property in one street and you have a property in another street, those are two different types of properties and they're valued differently. So you can start creating what we call non-fungible tokens, which are digital representations of assets, and these assets will be real world assets such as real estate, or digital assets such as Pokemons or this kind of tradable cards that people can interact with. And I was saying CryptoKitties was an example of a project that created kitties which were unique, and that people could breed these kitties with one another and trade these kitties. So going back to the question, the second example I was saying is, let's say you create a non-fungible token, you create an exclusive CryptoKitty or some sort of that.
Something unique. There's one limited. Okay.
Exactly, and you don't want anyone in the world to be able to hold that. You want to create like a special niche of exclusive people to be able to interact and hold that. So you can have these people be validated via certificate authorities, and you can create these rules where every person that's older than 30 years and lives in the in Asia, and that they have GitHub accounts or whatever, can only hold this non-fungible token. So you can get creative on all this stuff.
Okay, we are having a lot of questions. On the chat. I'm thinking about the time. Let me, for Nacho, Sasha, let me go with the questions we have before and try to get. Let me see how many we can get answered. Okay, so
yeah, and also
question from the community. Yes.
But tplprotocol.org, there's an email there. So if we don't have time to answer our questions, feel free to shoot an email, and I or our team will do our best to answer it.
Oh, that's great. Okay, we can put it on the chat as well with MJ, or we can obviously after this we can share all the links and all the contacts for all of us in the community. Okay. Yeah, I'm concerned, but the question that people did before, because they read the material, they put the questions. So let me go with this one. Okay, there's something I always and all the activities we have. Okay, I try always to explain about the design of the token, whatever. I'm gonna do the question anyway. Would this protocol work both for utility and security tokens?
Yeah, of course. And like the two examples I gave, one was for security tokens, and the other one was like actually not a utility, but a non-fungible token. But again,
the token design is from the project. It's not on the protocol, correct? I mean, when I design a token, I can design to be. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah. Like if you know you're doing a security token and you want to abide by certain rules, you can use TPL within a digital jurisdiction. If you're doing a utility token and you want to have some sort of rules for people that want to hold it, you can also use it. It's up to everyone. And I guess we need to have the community create more examples and demo applications and use cases to create content so other people can leverage our ideas and build their own interesting implementations.
That's the idea, the collaboration. That's the other thing that we need to understand. Developers build, I mean, in the case of Zeppelin, because I know them, they always, we are creating this and we look for support of the community. If the community don't like the idea, they don't go ahead, period. I mean, they didn't go ahead because it's something that they do for the community. So that's what we're trying to look for here. If there's something interesting for the community, if the lawyers say, okay, this is good for me, that's what we're trying to do here. Okay, another question. I have more than one 0x address. Should the certificate authority have to validate only once for all addresses, or need one validation for each one of my addresses?
Again, I guess this depends on the rules that each root DAO decides. If a root DAO says each participant can only have one address, then no. If a root DAO is open to that, to having someone having multiple addresses, yes. But in the end, again, if a root DAO becomes putting rules that don't make sense, participants are able to leave and opt out and go to another jurisdiction with like better rules. So it's in the best interest of everyone, and especially in the root DAO, to elect rules that make sense and the projects and participants like.
Okay, good. All this is because they have the option to ask the question themselves to the interacting, or leave the question to the moderator. So that's why I'm here trying to get the questions done. Okay. Okay. Could an exchange implement this in order to make it easier to stay compliant with local regulations?
Yes, for sure. Going back to the example of your browser today and Google Chrome supporting SSL certificates to make sure that everything happens seamlessly, and you didn't even know that maybe that an SSL certificate was being read in the background. We see exchanges supporting TPL certificates, so participants in the exchange can automatically interact without having to think about there's a certificate or not, what happens in the background. Forget about that. The exchange does everything, and everyone is free to participate in an easy way. Okay,
so going back to Ignacio's question, what are the use cases? Exchanges is one that can use immediately. Okay, perfect. Okay, let's say, let me see here. Let's say I'm a project launching an ICO. Okay, before I follow with the question, ICOs, token sales, this is another use case, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we have exchanges, we have ICO. Okay, so let me go with this question then. Let's say I'm a project launching an ICO. I'm targeting the following markets among others: US, Australia. Let's use these two as an example. Okay, US and Australia. For the US, I will allow only accredited investors to participate. For Australia, the regulator asks for some specific requirements for the KYC AML. As per your white paper, the question is the following. Should I use two different root DAO with two different sets of rules, one for the US and the other one for Australia? Or the root DAO is only one, and what we need is two certificate authorities, each one validating the specific set of rules, one for the US and one for Australia? Wow. Okay.
That's a good question. And there's no, like, the protocol doesn't oblige or like force any implementation. I guess this will happen from the community and each root DAO what they want to do. The way I imagine this is having a single root DAO and then having one certificate authority validating Australian people and one certificate authority validating US people. Both, since they are in the same digital jurisdiction, they both sign the same certificates, but of course with different extensions and different fields and inputs in each field. And then you as a project, you introduce these rules in your smart contract saying, okay, US accredited investor only, Australian with this and this, Europeans with this, like, or Chinese with this and this. And then once you are in that digital jurisdiction, everyone that holds certificates in this digital jurisdiction can participate.
Great. Okay, let's move on with this one. Okay, is this project structured, this project, naming the TPL, is this structured around proprietary IP or was developed around Ethereum or other protocol?
I'm not sure I follow the complete question, but everything is
on Ethereum.
Open source. And again, this is like project started and sponsored by Zeppelin today. Maybe this becomes a, has a life on its own. And the idea here is putting a proposal and putting some implementations out there for other people to build on top.
Okay. So yes, I guess the question is more around if it's open source or not. As I
it would be. It is open source, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let me go with the question from the chat. Okay. Here. Let's. Okay. Is this approach similar to Estonian model where they use their ID cards? Okay. No.
Yes, to some extent, because if you look at this, Estonia has its own jurisdiction and it has its own certificate authorities, which are the Estonian embassies around the world. So you go to the embassy, they validate you that you are who you say you are, and they give you a card, and this card acts as a certificate within Estonian's jurisdiction. So this could be the same. So
in a sense, correct. So in a sense, is yeah. Good one.
You can have a card, a TPL card, where that's given to you after you do some KYC in your local supermarket. I know.
Okay. So, okay, let me, I'm trying to get one and one. Okay. Here, are you planning to work around governance models by which you could be a third party recognized by regulators to certify that interactions with DLT network follow the lines set by norms enforced or to be developed? As we can see in the case of certification of certain processes relating to personal data protection. Okay, should I put it in the chat? Because it's a long question. Basically, are you planning to work around governance models that could be a third party recognized by regulators? Basically, that's the question.
Yes, of course. As I said, like each DAO will have its own governance mechanism. Initially, I see like borrowing from proven corporate governance structures. But eventually, as on-chain governance improves via, experimentation and what Aragon is doing, and some interesting projects are experimenting with that. So, each DAO will choose the governance approach that better fits its needs. And then, of course, they might want to make use of other standards of privacy of data, or validate how participants are validated, how the cards will be issued. I guess there will be a lot of standard things that we can, or processes, or we can borrow, and each DAO can borrow.
Okay, good. Okay, let's see if we have time for more questions. We have 10 minutes. If you want to ask a question, interacting in the chat, unmute it and ask yourself, put it on the chat, because we're very short of time in terms of the number of questions that we have, with the chat and with the pre-questions. Okay. I'm gonna leave this.
I have 2 questions here in the chat from before.
Okay,
one
go
is
ahead.
Sasha is asking.
Sasha, correct. The Sasha one, I was worried for that. Okay, good.
Okay, here it's we were working with community in designing the DAO, but we crossed with the obstacles that we couldn't avoid validators to be subjective. Have you an example of solution? I think, as the protocol stands, there's no one definition of a validator. Each DAO will choose what a validator for it will be. Like I said before, maybe a validator is a GoDaddy thing. Maybe everyone is a validator and you have a reputation system on top for, like a LinkedIn for validating other people.
LegalBlock community, the lawyers can be validators because they know of each jurisdiction and they.
Exactly. So I think the fact that the definition of validation is subjective, it's a feature, not a bug. And a lot of experimentation and things we should try to make sure to see what things work and what things don't work.
Yeah, that's one of the things that when I talk about the bridge to developers and lawyers is because we have to still have to set that the validator should be this and do this, and the developers is doing what you're telling, well, we can do this, could be this, could be that other way. So we need to have an open mind when we talk about all of these situations. Good. Okay. Yeah, how do you think TPL would be used in the crypto exchanges platforms? That would be the challenge to overcome. I think we already went through the exchange question. However, I have another question. I'm going to put this together. This one from JJ Miranda. And the other one I have from the previous one. I have one of the previous one trying can you elaborate, like a flow in an exchange, how the participant goes? And I'm going to put together this with one of the JJ, which is what are the challenges that can overcome when you're using this TPL on an exchange?
Okay. From an exchange perspective, going back to the example I gave before, in the same way Google Chrome supports SSL certificates issued by one certificate authority, each digital jurisdiction should work with exchanges for the exchange to natively support the certificates that they issue. It's the same with countries. Countries work with each other to support or accept passports from other countries. Either they need visas or they can enter the countries without any visa. So you can see this as a participant when trying to execute a transaction and trade a token. They should show their passport or their ID card or their TPL certificate, and if the exchange automatically natively supports that certificate, there's nothing that the participant should do like manually, but like everything, their account and everything will like happen automatically, reading everything on the background and execute or reject transactions accordingly. And I guess a challenge is there is like, first, how do you convince exchanges to support the certificates of a particular digital jurisdiction? It's the same like if I start my own country now, how do I convince the US to accept my citizens? Right? It's a that's I think that's the biggest challenge there.
Okay, so that's the biggest challenge. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Question here. Let me see if we can have like 2 or 3 more questions. Let's say I'm interested in running a TPL on a crowdfunding platform to avoid expenses currently incurred in outsourcing KYC and background check services. What do I need to do?
So ideally, what you will do is, assuming TPL, there's a digital jurisdiction, there are validators. You can introduce the rules of that TPL digital certificate and digital jurisdiction within your smart contract, and actually you can become, a certificate authority, right, by yourself. Let's say you're doing let's say you're doing an ICO, and you do KYC to people, you validate them, and first you have to be approved by the root DAO of the digital jurisdiction that you want to participate in. But if they approve you, for every person you issue a certificate to them, and that allows them to be able to buy their tokens or eventually transact with them.
Good. Okay. Here MJ says we're interested in the feature for LegalBlock. So that okay, thanks. So that reputation and other factors can be added to the incentive system. It's not a question. It's more like an affirmation. Okay. I mean, what we talked before.
Do you have any tips for groups that want to add the layered TPL scheme? What do you mean by layered TPL?
I can't remember the author right off the top of my head, but it's one that's come out recently that's basically just allows certain characteristics to be met by users, and then so that they would have a ranking type of system. There's like, say, it's 7 layers or 5 or 10 or whatever you set up.
You mean like a reputation layer? I mean, like a layer that is.
Yeah, maybe, and maybe I'm crossing too many wires too here, but
we can use.
If you haven't heard of it, it's probably best is just not have the question.
No, we can integrate. I mean, what I think is, and again, this is not a question that was before. We just happened as we talk.
Right.
The thing of the LegalBlock being validators. I mean, we haven't talked about this before. But yes, I mean, if we as LegalBlock have a reputation system that we are, developing in theory right now for further implementation, we already have that in place, same as, like the accreditation of lawyers. That could be, I mean, you can choose the certificate authority based on that, but it's not part of the layer, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so let me see if I have a last question here. MJ, if you can check the chat. How do you consider? Okay, I have a question here. I don't know if you're following this. Have you considered the creation of a version of your protocol to enforce and transfer copyright, as we have seen in the white papers of projects like Kodak Coin? I'm not familiar with the white paper of Kodak Coin, but this is a question.
But yes, for sure. I guess everything that can be tokenized, either a security token, a utility token, a non-fungible token, copyrights, whatever can be tokenized can be, and that's executed via smart contracts, can be triggered by the TPL protocol and can be like supported by the TPL protocol.
Good. Okay, we're just finishing this hour. We had a lot of questions. If we check if something is out of answer, we're gonna put together this maybe and do a recap of this. We always with the activities try to get, you know, the activities in LegalBlock are like a preparation for the activity when people read obviously the material. Then we have this one-on-one with the creator, usually with the developer, so we can explain what we are doing right now. And then we have an outcome because we consider that, I mean, everything, an activity is not just like, oh, we have Demi, okay, we read this. It's a process and we need an outcome because that outcome goes out, you know, to the community. So we can discuss this after this. Maybe we can do a set of a short video where you can explain the flow, something like this, so we can share and the lawyers can understand better this. And obviously this is being recorded. Okay, so okay, we're gonna be, for all of you, we have this event coming, ETH Buenos Aires. I love to go. We're gonna be, I mean, more in touch with them. So let's try to get this time to discuss on a Slack. If we have any question for Demi or something, or about this, as a conclusion of this Q&A session, we're gonna be together in Buenos Aires. So maybe we have some questions, we're gonna do, you know, like something from there. And see you in Buenos Aires, says Eduardo Len. Okay, so he's going as well. So thank you very much, Demi, for your time. I know you're very busy, and well, everyone here is busy. Thank you for your time. Let's see, thank you. Okay, you can read the chat. So, okay, thank you all of you for being here. We have been more than, we're 22 right now, which is good. LegalBlock is open for discussion after this. We're gonna share that Zeppelin's or Demi contact information for TPL implementation. This is open source. And thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone here. It's been great fun.
Okay, I'm gonna keep this. Thanks.